खुरुमजरी इम्पैक्ट न्यूज़ की मनु हुटना यंगब्रिब मयामबु तराम नोक्चरी हंगचे तांग कुन 73rd commemoration of Battle of Imphal Manipur tourism की मखादा सिंधुना पांगथोकदौरी. What are the significance of this event? हाइबना चिंगबा सिगी नुंगी ओइबा वाहनथोक के केनो हाइबना चिंगबा अदु मैम खननबा कोई स्टूडियो लेंसन दुने लेरे ओजा प्रोफेसर लोकेंद्रा डीन सोशल साइंसेस मणिपुर यूनिवर्सिटी. थैंक यू फॉर जॉइनिंग अस. ओजा की नाकंदा प्रोफेसर ओजा लोकेंद्र की नाकंदा युमनाम राजेश्वर. तमो राजेश्वर, welcome to the show. Tamo is a co-founder of Second World War Imphal Campaign Society. Also joining us is AKIKO MACDONALD, the chairperson BURMA Campaign Society London. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
मतलब ओजा लोकेंद्र जित लाग चरे ओजा चाही खुदिंग की पांगथोकतुना लाक्लिबा थोरमनि हाइबा तारे. ओजा सिगी हिस्ट्री नैनबम चंगे होजिकान के हौरकलिबा नहार हिस्ट्री वार अखोई लोकल दा अहलमना जापाल लाल हाइरु जखनि ओजा ओजा जुंग हावै थाइना अहलमना वरी लिबा ताबिरमने अखोइजु इबोक सिंग नै इपुजिन लिबदि am ताजे हाइरिबा. ओदा please throw some light for the younger generation. Matamdi war kamai to gibno ahal mani chelag lot pa khotpa adum yam history ki hape adum ta kitang pan biyo
okay. Battle of Imphal si akoi ki military ki history ki pra literature de di mase koi turning point hai na hai.
Okay.
akoi ki adum Naga Hills ki si ki sector si ga koi Battle of Imphal si ga ani si same akoi ki framework amagi makhada koi yengadabane. Ada akoi ki 1944 ki March tagina July loisalak mabawba masi ki matam tha akoi ki mari manga ki matam asida Imphal amadi Naga Hills adu Manipur ki koi jaga sing asida akoi ki INA Japanese forces ka aduga allied forces ka yamna akanba akoi ki lan thengnagi lan si practically akoi local media and the literature that the akoi ki yam kan phungdok ta ba akoi nungti gi akoi adum aeroplane se adum akoi dog fight ka tawna dana sahi amma makhai kum se adum lei bane ado akoi ki masi gi matam masida akoi ki Naga Hills and Manipur asida matam dugi oiba akoi ki global leaders hai bataye akoi ki pra military general sing adegi aphaw ba akoi ki adum politician sing akoi ki statesman sing adegi aphaw ba tongan military officer sing adegi akoi adum royal engineering corps gi akoi ki adum engineering corps da yaropa akoi Cambridge Oxford University de gi hairiba sing asidum laktana Manipur ki infrastructure sing Naga Hills ki infrastructure sing semgat sagat pada akoi ki yamna akoi thodang lawki bane aduga masigi tha mari manga gi matam aduga madugi mamang sahi ama makhairom sigi matam digi yamna kuina akoi Northeast India particularly Naga Hills ka Manipur ga si yamna slow moving oiba yamna sleepy town and sleepy places haigadra adugumba lerambadi ki khanghaudana angakpa yamna transformative oiba akoi ki military technological akoi ki intrusion lakpa tongan ba community ma tongan ba nationality gi tongan ba mi sing lakpa adi tongan ba akoi ki consumer items sing lakpa adi tongan ba akoi artillery de gi tongan ba khuju khulai de gi tongan ba force lakpa tongan ba loan ngang ba tongan ba akoi color adi tongan ba akoi ki mi sing lakba sina hairiba yamna sleepy oina yamna slow moving oiba sigumba akoi jaga asida leramba akoi ki pra community sing ase makhoi ki wakhal londa makhoi ki migeng da angakpa achoba sok ama piki aduna akoi na thajabadadi second world war ase akoi ki adu military history ke point of view de gisu moina turning point ni hai maramdi INA Japanese forces na karigumba masigi adum Imphal Manipur aduga Nahil si Naga Hills si lanthoga Gangetic Plain da akoi ki changbang ama magadi tongan ba akoi itihas ama soidana gi semam ganen so hainai amarom da haraga Northeast India gi on this masi atopa turning point ni madu karma turning point ma habda ai ngasa haijabado yamna tappa yamna akoi ki margin da leiba para community sing ase masi अखोई इंटरनेशनल ग्लोबल फोर्सेस सिंग ग्लोबल कैपिटल लाकपा सिगुम्बगी फोर्स लाकपसिदगी मोइगी वखनलोंदा मखोइगी मियेंगदा अदेगी अदु वे ऑफ लाइफ ता अहोंगबा म लाकपसिना सेकंड वर्ल्ड वॉर मतुंगदेगी अंगकपा मखनमगे सोशो पॉलिटिकल चेंजेस अम लाकपगी मदुगी रूट्स तो मदुदा हौगिबने हाइबसि खोइन लौजे
सो अजय नुंगाइजी ओपनिंग रिमार्क ता चेंजेस कमाय ला पोकर पोकर ताकपिरे बट हिस्टोरिकली अखोई प्रिजर्व तौबा याबा पट तौब्रा से फॉर एग्जांपल क्विरिंगे एयरफील्ड अदु मतमदि याम नमरु होइना ताजे ओजा अदुगी मतंग दमुक ओजा द सेकंड राउंड लाक्चगे तमो राइसो 73rd सुबह कमेमोरेशन है ताई तमो राइसो इम्फाल कैंपेन गी सरुक अमोइना सी व्हाट आर द सिग्निफिकेंसेस को सी मतंग हाइबियू प्लस सीजना हियंग चही कुदिंग पक्थुइबनी एम्बेसडर में लाई जापानीज एम्बेसडर यूके एम्बेसडर एंड सो ऑन मोइ लाक्तना दुम पंगथुइबनी चही कुदिंग पंगथुइबनी करी होम पुरलबगे हंदक की थीम ना इफ आई एम नॉट रॉन्ग पीस एंड रिकंसिलिएशन है कोई क्यामु याम रिकंसाइल तौरे खोप बैकग्राउंड का पीबी
डेफिनेटली सी अखोइना फर्स्ट लार्ज स्केल कमेमोरेशन होबजे 70th एनिवर्सरी ऑफ बैटल ऑफ इम्फाल याना 2014 दा
ओके
मसिदा अखोइगी पृथ्वी की असागी लान सोकनरंबा जापान अदेदी अमेरिकन अदेदी ब्रिटिश सिंगी डेलीगेट मैम कौरगा अखोइ सेम प्लेटफॉर्म अमदा मोइ म्याम से उनहलगा रिकंसिलिएशन हौजगी हाइब तारे एंड मतुंग तारकपदी अखोइ चही खुदिंगी अदुम स्केल पिक अगसु अदुम पांगथोक्तुना लाई एंड हंदकी सिसु अखोइगी 73rd सिसु अखोइगी जापानीज जिंगी डेलीगेट निफु माथो लाखनी कंफर्मेशन पिबिरे अदर नेशन जिंगी एम्बेसी जिंग अखोइ इनवाइट तौजे
ओके
एंड लाखनी लाओ हाइबदु अखोइ होजमक्ति मोइ कंफर्मेशन लाक तब मरमना हाइब ngамद्रि अदुना अखोइना 75th की दमक्ता लार्ज स्केल दमा तौसे हैना अखोइगी सिमिनरिबा अखोइ मणिपुर टूरिज्म फोरम ने सेकंड वर्ल्ड वॉर इम्फाल कैंपेन फाउंडेशन ने अंडर द गाइडेंस एंड सपोर्ट ऑफ द गवर्नमेंट ऑफ मणिपुर सिंजबने नादगी 70 दि सिंजरैजे अदुना वी हैव प्लान Manipur Tourism Forum ga Second World War Imphal Campaign Foundation ga 75th the large scale tause adagi even international organizations gi support lodana kari tawbi he do khoi khanari hojiksu aduga akhoi gi aina highlight toning point kharan akhoi 70th anniversary 2014 da tawne a large delegates of various nations में आम लोग लाखे मणिपुर की इंटरनेशनल टूरिस्ट की ट्रेन से अखोई टूरिज्म की डाटा दा इन चेक तौबदा 2013-14 दा 700 समथिंग लेरम में टूरिस्ट फ्लो से अखोई की मणिपुर दा बट अखोइना 70th एनिवर्सरी तौबु का संग साइगी फॉरेन की वेटरन्स की फैमिलीज मचा मसुजु में आम लाखे अदुनर करिनो a 300% jump in the international mapalangi tourist flow say 2014 the around 3000 plus la a jump from say 740 plus to 3000 that means 300% jump tawre I mean I will I give personal opinion I will contribute akhoin 70th anniversary sinjagi bido maduda international tourist myam lakhi delegate myam lakhi bido aduna at least masi 70-80% contribute tawbra na khanjai
handak lakti myam so moina
definitely and tung da soi lakani na khanjai aduga akhoi gi ngasai gi akhoi important oi rise अखोई बैटलफील्ड जिंग से फजना अखोइना मार्क तौबीदना हिस्ट्री दो मैम द खंगनदना अदगिदी इंपोर्टेंट ऑफ लोकेशंस मैम सम हैव द मणिपुर लैंडमार्क मैम ले जनरल सी गे मफम ले अखोई मणिपुर द ब्रिटिश की जनरल ओडी विंगेट से प्लेन क्रैश सी गे एंड दिस कैन बी अ वेरी बिग टूरिस्ट स्पॉट जस्ट एन एग्जांपल अदगी अखोई ओरमेबा एयरफील्ड तरुक लेरमे एयरफील्ड जिंग जिजो अखोइना मार्कर मम थंबिरमगा मस प्लेन की एयरफील्ड ओरमे गायना मार्कर थंबिबे इट कैन बी अनदर टूरिस्ट स्पॉट अदुमाइना मफम इंपोर्टेंट है समना 4 कोर हेडक्वार्टर 4 कोर की स्लीम न लेरंबा हेडक्वार्टर लेरी हजिकसु अखोई मोंगजम हैंगांगी चिंगोन जिंगजे अदुमाइना इंपोर्टेंट लोकेशंस में आम बैटलफील्ड्स में आम ले बैटलफील्ड्स कुनमुख हेन ले इंफाल दा बैटल थोके इट्स नॉट इंफाल थोके लान मचानती है इट्स अ वॉर Allied force की मी लाख अनि मखाई मो मा अदैदी जापानीज की लाम लिसिंग कुनमु
Second World War
yes अदुना टोटल ngसागी different nations तगी allied force यावरिसि अखोइगी commonwealth nations even Africans Canadians Americans New Zealanders British Indians 60% of the allied forces consist of Indians adu mayam dugi tourist potential yeng ta gadi lakh ahum mari sigi families in Imphal da mapa mapugi haikat lekat tambi ba sahim da mumuktang la agasu we have a potential about say more than 3 lakh tourists every year aina larger hole than yeng je ko yamna kanu oib na te adumaina we have lot of potential aduna haining what we need is ngasagi tourist spots in semgot piba adaidi han nagi matam du le me poting du tek ta kaidana koina thambi ba samna thong bo hairo adaidi airfield jing hairo simu yam develop to biragadi akoi da I feel that second world war gi achob gift ne na khan leina akoi gi economy da contribute to yaba
Tamra jam pajo point ne adu matang du hen in detail the khaning mane oja da ju dang hang je ki coming to you Akiko professor and Daresh were talking about the tourism what can be done to the tourism in the state due to these so I'd like to first start with you by asking you what is Burma campaign that you are chairman of I know it was founded in March 2002 if I'm not wrong on the ideals of promoting understanding of Britain and Japan's encounter during the Second World War and I'm sure you're aware of the fact that during those days at least in the Second World War phase the Japanese were were beaten very badly when they tried to enter Manipur through Burma by the Allied forces. So it's a fact that that particular beating was the biggest beating ever they received at that particular point of time. So please tell us more about your Burma Campaign Society, how you associated with it, and the ideals as I mentioned. So please give us a little more about it.
But basically, Burma Campaign Society is based on reconciliation of activities. And that's the most important factors.
Right.
How it happened was previously it was called Burma Campaign Fellowship Group.
Okay.
So fellowship group meaning the friends of war, i.e. War comrade, and starting from the British Burma veterans, and they are originally from Welsh. They're British but Welsh, two of them. One of them was captured Japanese at the very beginning of the Japanese invasion of Southeast Asia. Start from Singapore, and in Singapore being defeated so easily by Japanese because they surrendered on the British side. And how it turned out to be was more than 80,000 of British soldiers had to surrender.
Right.
And without so much of fighting. So the Japanese, compared to the Japanese numbers are only 35. So how it happened was quite interesting sport to analyze that too.
Okay.
And then later on, they increased more so-called POW and collecting from Indians, Malaysians, Chinese, Singaporean Chinese, and also Thai as well. And they had to march from Singapore to Malaysia through the Thailand, and then Thailand from Thailand to Burma and so on. So the very beginning of the Second World War started in 1941.
Right.
Japan was actually trying to defeat America to start with, and then it spread all over simultaneously. And they are targeting the former colonized countries such as Indonesia, is colonized by Dutch, and where the oil is. The Burma is also where the oil is. So basically, why they are focusing on Southeast Asia, the Japanese started to come in because the lack of natural resources in Japan. They completely relying on import oil from America.
Right.
And there was United States and Great Britain and perhaps French and Dutch and so on, they ostracized Japan politically. And because Japan invaded after Korea, and then went to Manchuria, and then an incident happened, which is the war between Japan and China, and that went on over 15 years. And that's where the United States started to intervene, and they started threatening politically. And one of the things was the oil they stopped exporting to Japan.
Right.
So they had lots of negotiation between United States and America behind the scene, while United Kingdom, as you know, the Germans started to break. They invaded Poland, And so, you know, dragging to the Second World War in Europe as well.
Right.
So this is, you know, this thing is quite a large subject to talk about. But the Burma campaign, which means, it started from Singapore. That's why you have to look at it.
Okay.
And then the POW issues. And then POW issues became like a stereotype of the Japanese. And that's what the focal point, that interested me.
Right.
Why Japanese are so bad, why Japanese are brutal, and so on. Started wonder because very, you know, naturally I'm married to British,
Right.
white man. And I am Japanese. Perhaps maybe I've got maybe white blood. However, I started ask questions. So why, you know, we have to be blamed on all the time, being brutal, whatever, and stereotyped. And that's when I started to question in United Kingdom because I lived there.
Right.
Yeah. In Japan, it's not much talk about war because they tried to brush under the carpet. They don't
Right.
want to analyze it. They don't want to talk about war. They simply because they know that they started the war. That was again and brainwashed from the victor's side. There was more deeper than that. There are lots of questions to ask why Japan had to go abroad and start, you know, fighting. This is more another subject maybe to discuss about. However, the Burma, when the Japan went and then wiped out, you know, all the British troops, the British troops went up to the Imphal, you know, station Imphal and also Dimapur and so on. Then when the Chandra Bose came and joined the Japanese army and start, you know, talking to Japanese top headquarters in Japan, talking about, gave the Japan ideas to liberate. The Burma was liberated more or less, right? Because it's, you know, completely pushed the Japanese, British out. Now the next task is India, to liberate India. That's what the Chandra Bose had took leadership, influences the General Tojo's and back in headquarters. And then initially Imphal campaign was dismissed because it was really bad strategy. Because every means and logistic wise, and it's why do Japan have to go to India? Because already have contained the Burma, because it's already controlled. How it happened was because initially Japan was winning against American and, you know, allied. However, later on it goes completely running out all the resources, and then America quickly, you know, how to say, manufactures, the productivity shot up, and creating lots of aircrafts and then tankers and munitions and so on, so that American economy boosted up so much, right? And so they started really focus. Of course, it's as you know, Pearl Harbor. You know, remember
Yes.
Pearl Harbor. So they started attacking Japan, and so overtook immediately. So the Pacific War, Japan started to lose. And they didn't want to lose, of course. So they looked at the Burma, there must be a potential. And then comes in General Kawabe, and another one is underneath it is General Mutaguchi. And they started to give that ideas. Well, look, there is in Imphal campaigns been you know, put on hold before. Now revived the idea. We're going to do that. And then the Mutaguchi discussed it but however, how are we going to do it logistic wise? I said, well, Burma is full of anything because there's greenery there and the vegetables are there and so on. So when you go along and then you pick up all the fruits and anything for vegetations that you never starve. That was the ridiculous, irrational ideas that input those 15 armies. So that's why I stumped from the headquarters, because they didn't want to lose in Pacific War. So they saw there's an opportunity, possibility that they took over Burma. The next is India. Then Chandra Bose explained it when the Japan started to invade Imphal area, Manipur and Nagaland, then aiming to get to Dimapur. So Dimapur and Imphal is the two really major stations, very, very important because of the depots here, and then also connected with the transportation. Dimapur has got national railways, and all the resources are there. So Chandra Bose persuaded the Japanese side to go to Dimapur. Then the China was planning to declare for freedom, meaning the liberating the India, the whole Indian nation was raised up and pushed the British to fight among themselves. That's what they was planning. That was the Imphal campaign. It's all about. So the silly thing is, they thought German was winning, and my father also said that. Why did you go there, Imphal? And he said, well, because of this strategy, that when the Japanese invaded India and India started liberated, and then they stand up against the British Empire, then meanwhile the German would come from Europe, then they squashed the British Empire completely. That was the idea. And how wrong it was. How wrong it was.
So
that was
you bring up a few important points, made some very valid points. Thank you so much for going back into the history and telling us a few things of what you know. I'll be really interested in talking to you about what you just mentioned about few Japanese just don't want to talk about it, want to bury under the carpet and stuff. So those are altogether different subject,
Yes.
which is very important, by the way. So I'll come back to you on that. Oza Lokendra, sigi matangda kenonazu AKIKO nazu haibiri. Mi jipok war loiger bokta pena double area haimne. Degi kasai tamo raishona koi Manipur da hingang da du leba degi koi nge FL leba hangjeng do tamo. As a state, are we doing enough? Koi gi tourism hengana bohai tourism hengana ba natraga koi nge FL, if I'm not wrong, last month koi chief minister nong thom birana prime minister igre hai. Koi nge FL do army ne cancel le rahe. Sizo koi war matam gi poram ne hajire boza. Oza si matang krai bi.
Kano koi ngasai gi Professor AKIKO na haibadu daina kanamtang so hygienic mamana kainoida. Huzik phabada koi gi Second World War gi Imphal aduga Naga Hills sector gi lairiba literature sing se. Masida wasai gi Japanese sources se practically naina masi khara wa level. Kano Japanese sources se koi panu udeba. Japanese sources se khara season nahi kanana adu season nage hai kanda. European Anglo-Saxon historians jingzina Japanese sources to ururaga mogi own window degi laga even ever. But as a historian and as a student of social science, we are interested to know how the Japanese soldiers who had gone back, how they had actually felt about, how they had perceived about the local responses, about their food habits, about the society, about their frustrations, about their happiness. Actually, this aspect of the history of the Imphal campaign from the Japanese perspective is not so far available to us. This is actually one of the major lacuna in the existing literatures. Yamna nungaigada pot ne masigi se. Aduna ngasai kind of Professor AKIKO na hairiba moina haining di hairi se asina maram mama oiram ya. Aduna akoida nainariba pot sing ase akoi Japanese sources akoi khara wa level. Sima. Secondly, I ngasai haijaba da ngasai gi Imphal asi da lairiba ngasai gi entire akoi gi supply depots Imphal se lerabane. Dimapur da lairiba akoi railway station sida Anglo-American forces sing entire technology digi armament gi sibhai digi loima pusal ka dormni. Masi mayam sing si pusal e hairega Imphal si at least say around 45 days they completely seized out of Neva. Aduna say Manipur Valley the Leriba, Manipur Sing Tam the Leriba, even Naga Hills powder Koima sector Kara, Sinatan Atay completely Japanese things na Adum control Tor Lerba. Masiki foot stagi, the Tongan Tongan, Ishing the gi, Sana Tangna the gi, Mayam sing as airdrop Torim. Other Madame da Akwigi can I say Air Force, Royal Indian Air Force, American Air Force. But I'm so Matang with the same with the Japanese, we can say, a pushback, say, Masi Yam successful or Ibrahim, Aina, Masimaina, or Kanze. Aduna Imphal, they say Adam Kumbigram Portugi, Adegi, Tripura degi, for aeroplanes in Paikalaga, Imphal, the Akwagi known as Semgaleba. Akwegi kano singse akwegi airfield singse masida akwegi adum planes in akwai nampu da tasal hairaga madagi akwegi adum soldiers sing adum hondokpa adegi pra supply sing pra thadaramba adegi pra doctor sing pusalakpa engineer sing pusalakpa asina chungma yam sing si tobne adige mu imphal dige mu paikhal aga ham paina akoi asomda akoi gi adum general steel well ga adum China da pra general steel well ga ad chiang kai shek ka mobani na toba akoi China gi akoi jaga khara da akoi gi adum communist China akoi Mao gi forcing se asiga akoi gi thengnaba adugi matong da pra Japanese jing na ju maduda akoi gi adi conflict yausel lakpa da ngasai gi leiriba American supply line as pi na bai dana se aeroplane jana paikhala adu supply pi ribana aduna yamna crucial loiba yamna pra logistically yam important loiba akoi gi kanone sigi jaga ne aduna hujik leiriba airfield ga ji hujik ti koina parallel airfield di hai khoi gi pra direction de di adu hujik leide khoi kakching airfield ne ba maji ju koi encroach toxin gi na practically leitre adi koireng airfield ji pra encroach toxin gre ade sapam gi pra wangjing gi hujik leiriba si kitang akoi Imphal airport si tulihal je si khaktang ngaisele ate di masi khoi gi loina bak si encroach toxin na akoi gi tongan ma tourist mayam sing da koi ut na bo pot tu irregulation lakta ba na khanje aduna masigi context da government of akoi Manipur na masida kitang miyeng changbiraga yamna chawba role ama second world war asi gi turning point oi gi ba adugum pot ni na masi mayam sing tourist inflows hinga na ba masi khara khoi ngak sen basi pra darkar le na aina masi ma khanje adegi second point aina ngasai masi akoi rajeshwar na su pra haibi khare 60,000 Japanese soldiers se masida akoi gi sikh ba yawi adega pra sokhi ba yawi adega 27,000 Anglo American forces le ko masi moi si sikh ba yawi sok ba yawi hairi ba sing asi 60,000 Japanese approximately asina hujik lai ba Japan ji tonga Japanese island sing si 60,000 family sokal lai na aduna moi sing asi lakning ba yamna lakning ba ja ne ba ado akoi gi kana professor akoi gi professor hanigi akoi former vice chancellor professor hizam to mina Japan da han chapa kan mana akoi tam ba ma je hekda akoi hek Japan jo kan ja ba ko tonga ba island sing tonga ba family sing pakau da ko dana akoi gi Manipur da gi ni hair ga di yamna nungsi jaba adegi kari khara le mateng pangning ba adi unaning ba adi wari saning ba adu gumba to thoki na akoi da sum tam ba aduna hairiba masai gi sigi sectors de sokri ba akoi Anglo American forces aduga Japanese INA forces masigi family sing sina sahi guding gi moi homage people lakpada aduga moi visit to lakpada adi military historian sing adi academic sing adigi tourist mayam sing sina masida hoi changak pada kitang nungai na ba koi government intervention se positive intervention se sanabagi matam se yo right
government intervention dakata hai ni wajana hai se matang is break talo jega topic se nungari break matung yam thun hanjra ke impact news ke man hutna beng ta dun lebi welcome back kaum break bantu tawra shoden hangning je ngasai budi ojana tourism wangkhanab ke to biya ba government ke to honing ba koringi airfield gumba ma'am mention to gre sina to ba tawng site gi Imphal campaign amagi saruk amoina tawon kari thodang pakhat pe yari government da takshan be yari bra naga tawon Manipur pum du uzaru ba mayam du yenguraga kari for example history gi da kitang mo hairga toina artillery phangi hai boja Manipur da nga world war matam ga artillery dum phang baliap tri hai ba bom khangde ngang han da jo som da nambolam da jo dum phangi taiso dum paw yeng birangone sung mayam je हाइदी इमोशनल अटैचमेंट हम हाइजरीबा वर्ल्ड वार मतम की निंगसंगनबा सुगुम मैम जे कोई क्रिएट अमत तोब चंग्रा खली हिस्टोरिकल पोट मैम जे थमम अमा हाइदी मैम टूरिज्म न अमोन अट्रैक्ट तोनबा सुगुम मैम तमो साइडी के एक्शन पैकेट पे याई
डेफिनेटली तबम थोय खले अदो अखोई तौसु तौरी न खले अखोई ngमजब लेवल दा मसागी अखोइना रिसर्च तौरगा बैटलफील्ड जिंग से चलगा एक्सकेवेट तौर मदुदगी फंगप रेली जिंग दो अखोइना अखोई Imphal War Museum है ना अखोइना लेजे अखोई Imphal Campaign Foundation की मसीदा अखोई रेली जिंग प्रिजर्व तौरगा लोई थमी अदुगा टूरिस्ट में मपांदे लाख जिंग अदुम अखोई एवरी मोई लाख भुंदी एवरी मंथ एवरी वीक लाख भुंदी मोई वी हैव विजिटर्स नाउ सो अखोई की लेवल तौबे याबो हाइबु ngसाई अखोई ngamba लेवल अखोई प्रिजर्व तौजरी एंड वी आर स्टडिंग बैटलफील्ड मैम की वार डायरी सिजनदना वेटरन्स अकाउंट सिजनदना मेमो सिजन अखोई मैम रिसर्च तौरगा अखोई ngमजब लेवल दा आई आर्टिकल ओइना न्यूज़पेपर नि खंगदे कोई वेबकास्टिंग कनो टोइना रेगुलर ओइना कंट्रीब्यूट तौजरी एंड Sumaina, I have my future plan that I like in the process lay I don't know, lady by the Kangiba knowledge, Nasagi, in a Tegnareba, veteran accounting Yamdu, archival material in a future Gidamugai Tanamba, it's one of my dream. Okay. We can highlight various aspects to the government, like Second World War talk a generation it's like a lost chapter. Even among the historians and scholars, it's more like a lost history. See, a syllabus to the university syllabus to the Angang school syllabus to it's high time now. Angang say Angangi syllabus chapter ma happy dana, or maybe say college level as happy dana chapter or even university level as chapter or haptana study to Lagadi, Akogi Hori Banganzina, Akoi Lamsi Kari Tokibino, Mafum Kai the Kari Tokimado, awareness, a chobum create tonically, plus future researchers in na. Further research toraga more detailed analysis to be there the larger view ma uwo phangadra khale and see I hajar si keno khoi to be aba area jing duni ko khoi professor sir su leire university ki moina moi level da to ngam su I would request sir to take up this matter ada government gi site gi hire policy making khoi war tourism gi me ju chai kuding lai masda PAP budi relax tawre so sigi sumba any mapandagi foreigner changpada conducive oive environment create to biragadi ko harassment akoi p have na tawa khoi gi live tourism si interior jing changan ba yarga di samna ukhul da lan songna me harwa khangai is ukhul gi mafum am da le harwa khangai is the first battlefield of Second World War in Indian soil India gi soil da Hana Second World War so nagi mafam never. See a queen who developed the lady never. It's high time we develop this. Adu da develop the wooden to be foreign Nasai land sooner Machamasu Chang Budasu freely access to Mayava. If required, government security be the Changan Bagumbo. At my to Biragadi, Kitan government policies relax it and Tambiragadi. I hope the flow of tourists say Hayam Hengalakanina Kale. Other aspects in the seminar gumba koi saroigi university da frequently seminar gum simbiraga hoji ko short term plan da when awareness create to ga di sat university students in the when seminars in sinbi dana say better locations ki or importance of Second World War in from Manipur context ko suma seminar me am sinbiraga di quick awareness am di create to ngamudra nai khanje
yamna valid points was tamra ishwa thambiri se ado taun kan ojana jo mu da tanar ga seminar gu masin ba khotpa dum try to we ani khal so coming to you Akiko Rajeshwor is talking about those historical places which he wants them to be preserved or to increase tourism. He is doing his own thing, he's doing his part to increase tourism. He's writing columns, he's in the process of writing a book which is going to release, so he's talking about those. Now fast forward to 2017, do you still think, you just mentioned about Japanese not ready to talk about the wars, or some people just not ready to open up. So fast forward 2017, do you think people are still upset or the war is still on? Now for example, a few months back, the former POTUS, Barack Obama, I was talking about Hiroshima and Nagasaki with you. He visited there to pay his respects to the memorial there, and he refused to apologize. So is this a trend that the current leaders will not apologize for what happened? So why are still not opening up? Why are people still not opening up? Like you just mentioned a while ago. Why do you think they don't open up?
Let's talk about politics now. I was ready to talk about tourism. So my mind is just thinking about tourism, but they're talking about going back to the war now. Right, about mindset you're talking about? Yeah, okay. Now, as far as the Japanese government and the Prime Minister is concerned, constantly every year apologizing. Okay, that's the official thing. But again, perception being wrong. Right. They still think that Japan never apologized. Been doing it many years, but still not forgiven. But as far as Britain is concerned, because I'm dealing with virtually, former adversary, and I'm talked to directly with the former, adversary of my father, as which I did not introduce myself. My father fought against
Right.
British. So this is very important factors. So I have a very strong ground to talk about that. And so anyway, they say in the UK that we forgive but never forget. That's the quote they always say.
Okay.
That meaning they are more like an upper side of it,
Right.
and then looking down to Japan, so that we forgive you, but we don't forget. So what about Japan? What can we say? We are forgiven, but we can't really even remember everything.
So we've forgotten and also forgiven.
So this is the dilemma in Japan side, which I think I've been talking to RAJESHWOR about post-war, about educations, about knowledge control and everything else. So people not to talk about the war anymore, because once they defeat it, they really focusing on economy more. So the soldiers who returned to Japan have never been welcomed
Right.
as a heroes, whereas as compared to the British side, they are of course the hero, except the Burma, British Burma and Imphal, Kohima campaigns never been treated as heroes back in our own country. So there was again lots of complexity. They have frustrations themselves. So I can share that, my father's frustrations and their frustrations. That as far as the British side is concerned, heroes are coming back from Europe.
Okay.
This is a very different perception again. So what the UK side said, well, don't forget us that we fought such a ferocious and the strongest army in the world, then we won. And nobody praised because of this. So this is a very interesting aspect, because I lived then in the UK for about nearly 30 years. So this is the one thing that we talked about together, or with the British veterans.
Right.
And they don't, of course, in the minorities, some of the handful British veterans, they still have anti-Japanese animosity. That's why they say, we forgive, but still never forgive. That's an attitude there existed.
Right.
But now, as you know, all those people are over 90, 95, so the numbers are really scarce now. The general, the veterans perceived that Japan was incredible brave. And how they see it, because the Britain was constantly winning throughout their history. Occasionally lost, also Roman Empire, and sometimes Dutch, they won, and that is coming back. But basically, they were winning. They were all the time winning. And then the end, the Second World War, the Britain again they won, but the enemy was really powerful. The Japanese soldiers were very well trained, physically and psychologically as well. And the psychological side is which is to do with the culture thing. So once that Japanese as a nation characters, that they are taught to do things, they are very disciplined, they believe in what they, the values are, and then they don't question it. And this is a certain society of Japan. So what their frustration they had was constantly the Western powers coming. And then they saw that once the Japan opened up country, before it used to be closed, they had a feudalistic samurai society. Perhaps
Right.
samurai means, okay? Up to 1867, that Japan almost like forced to open up the country by the American, threatened. They started to open up, then they quickly learned that American battleship are so superior than Japanese. Then they realized that industrialization is already happening there. The East India things and so on. So that was the big reasons why Commodore Commodore Perry came from the United States, and then transit the Japanese seaport, and then aiming to go to China and to do with East India companies, to do with the economy side.
Okay.
So it's always the war, economy, and then politics are intermingled, and then break out the war. Japan quickly learned that, and then whether there was such a Western power. So they started to learn from West all the industry, it's developed in UK, France, and Germany, and so on. They learned, they built, they also embodied all those engineering people from UK. So they quickly built the battleship, which is very, very strong, but learned from Britain, funny enough. So, but I would like to cut the history short, okay? Anyway, after the war, they were taught, because that West was too powerful, and they put that non-Westerns are subhuman. And that's what the attitude was. So, but the Japanese started to win, they particularly won against Russia. Right. The Russia is so-called white country, and a great country. So they started focusing on what's going on. That Asians are supposed to be inferior, but something different in Japan is. Then America and then Germany also, and then Russia started to talk about it. And we want to control the Asians. So that's where one of the philosophies started from. I think it's William. I think. It's called yellow peril. Yellow peril. If we don't do anything, then the Japan is going to start, becoming bigger and bigger. So they wanted to put Japan down. But the First World War, because the First World War, Japan won. Japan winning side. Japan helped Great Britain because it had Anglo-Japan allied treaties.
Right.
Yeah. Then the First World War won. UK and Germany lost again, right? Initially lost. There was the Paris peace conference. Japan started to give a bill saying treat every human being equal. But unfortunately, majority of other countries put handouts okay, but except Anglo-Saxon, including America, it dismissed it, and that was the frustration. That we won against Russia, we were strong enough, we started to develop and then mimicking in a way Western way of values, putting in, and we were treated the POW, particular Russians, very much like a guest.
Right.
But now we don't want to be fooled anymore. And that was the frustration. Like they started to prove before the war. And then the American pressurized it. All that, and then it's a more complicated history, so I don't want to talk about that.
Sure.
But the frustration that the Japan, the whole nations, they didn't express themselves that easily. But when the leaders start talking about it, it's like in a way Hitler. He started to brainwash Japanese, then become fanatic. Then everything what has happened is the white man's wrong and we are right.
Right.
So that's what the thing happened in all along the war. And I'm talking about history now, but going back to tourism. I was thinking when I was ready to talk about tourism, how to boost the tourism.
Exactly.
And based on the economy in Manipur, I think you need to have framework. And based on the history, and you are an academic, the academic has to have knowledge prepared, and then do lots of awareness movement, and then you got to involve local government certainly, because this is a legacy that you can sell as a story, history story. And then awareness also in universities, children, so on, what happened in the time, the great grandfather who fought or who got killed, as a victims and that sort of thing. Start explaining about, and then going back to also Indian history as well. So it's a very educational thing.
Right.
The educational richness in Manipur you have,
Right.
and that's where you got to utilize it. So you need, I think, it's a framework, but besides, to invite the foreign visitors who are interested in history, in particular foreign visitors, not about India side in your own countries, but that's something else. Let's say economically developed countries, such as, for example, Japan and UK and Europe and America and so on, what do they expect to come here? What do they see? That's what it needs to be focused on. Not just the selling, we got the history and so on, but need to have infrastructures. that everything is logically. Logistics side of it. Airport, they need to have a kiosk,
Right.
information desk is important. Also issue pamphlets, the history pamphlet, where to go, map as well. And these all need to be, prepared to bring in, and a peer exercise is important. So that means you have to have a framework, not just sitting here to talk and try to emitting your information through internet or whatever. That is one of the good things. But you have to do a marketing, meaning you yourself have team up to go abroad and then try to do exhibitions abroad, and then attract the people who are interested in history. And that it becomes really giving us such impact. And then that requires investment. So you have to look at a framework, in an inward-looking framework, which means you have to educate amongst yourself. You have a full of resources like RAJESHWOR and Professor Lokendra. So utilize that as a base, and then still there are images of the Imphal veterans.
Right.
Get hold of them, then documentary films and also what they're talking about and so on. Need that. That's the actually treasure for the future.
Right.
Then the young ones. What benefits the young one? Otherwise they would not be interested.
Right.
Yeah, but then give them what interests them to bring interact the people who coming from abroad. So that means what you need is hospitality, which you already have a nature of hospitality, which is excellent, but require more logistic side. You need to have, let's say, the road should be more, refurbished, and then also traffic is to be more,
Right.
Because sorry, I'm not criticizing because it's on the way to develop.
Right.
So need to have all the framework.
Sure,
This is my suggestion.
Thank you so much.
Stop. Thank you.
Oja loken kanone kikona koi kai tobi ai sarkar gi side kai thoning kiosk samba pamphlet saiba suggestion mam pibire ngasai kikona haibda I pick up one of those things that you mentioned about paying respect to the soldiers or to the deceased veterans. Kanone oja mam nazu audience mam nazu khang na ba West Yorkshire Regiment koi gi 1944 Battle of Imphal da saruk yakiwa as a respect to them fulfilled the kanona 1950 the cavalry barrack ama sagiba to respond to the threat of French Revolution. Adugi cavalry barrack to Imphal barrack haina mingthon ge as a mark of respect. Ado mayam nazu khambri mani Google to bi odum yorong mani Imphal barrack mingthon ge adumaina ino jadi khangning je kari to bi yari hosa ojana mayam takpi gre kari to bi yari hosa
kanone masi yamna important oiba akhoi ki battle site sing se masi phajana presentable oiba mawongda semgat paga loinana masai comprehensive oiba akhoi literature se yam comprehensive oiba battle ki account sing tongan ba battle to the involved of a regiment sing personnel sing ase masi ki account se sagat pire hairega akhoi na masi ki pot si mayamda awareness campaign ama tobuga loinana ngasai gi sokriba sida lay hidriba mayam singa se masi ki country du salaga akoi na pot se khangal lu bataba
yam phajau ko ne
yo lu bataba ne ngasai professor AKIKO na hari se tourist spot ni yam important ba tourist spot ni adegi akoi international significance leba global significance leba adu gumba event ta thokriba sigriba nagriba adegi madal se laigriba khotkriba mayam singa se masi jaga du chalaga akoina akoi local government gi mateng lobani khangde aduna jaga tongan ba independent financial gi mateng lobani khangde tawre hairaga akoina jaga du chalaga masi gi posi akoi da leire sumai tong thue haidana moida moi gi missing adu lakning na ba pochi akoina dol bata na ba
that's why matang sam te yetsa batare oja timing su yarakte oja yam phajau point habi re taisho last word to you 10 seconds matam jarakte taisho hangchiti commemoration pangtok tore ambassador ma'am laktuni khotuni sin tourism booster poisino AKIKO no ma'am haigre ke to biaba tamona ju larik mai biri hai larik he ilbe ngon copy na pibe tamoko last word to you, are you still confident koi tourism booster kodra adiga tu ko point mo si memory ki matang si Imphal battle ki matang da miyam da si sandupang ngam kari optimistic oi bibra 10 seconds
tourism boost or godnate I feel that tourism is already boost. It's already the paradigm shift have already arrived. Hojikti hana leram yudagi hojik PAP lokana tourism gi if you see the tourist flow data, you will definitely be confident that the paradigm shift has already begun. Thank you.
On that note, nasi ko nadi lotion batare loid ring eda mayam da Imphal battle amazung Kohima battle ka mari lena ba step nun thamsram ge mayam na world famous super John Maxwell Edmonds na hirami, when you go home tell them of us and say for your tomorrow we gave our today. Nasi ki matang selo sare kuram jari.